Hi everyone, and welcome to our webinar today with Simon and Thomas from our new partner Muffin. I'm super excited today to talk about themes like insurances and pensions for freelancers, and especially excited because we're doing it in English today, and most of that kind of information, it's quite hard in Germany to find in English. So I'm very thrilled for today. Before we diving into the hot topics, I shortly wanted to introduce myself and Uplink and explain some things regarding the agenda. I'm Nick. I work as Uplink for a head of business development, and besides some other tasks, I have the pleasure to organize events for our community. Uplink is a network of IT freelancers with more than 2,900 members. We offer meetups, events, exciting freelance gig for clients in the DACH region, and some other benefits. So if you don't know us yet, you can check us out. I will post the link in the chat. This whole webinar will be recorded. After the input from Simon, you have the possibility to get rid of all your questions. Therefore, you can already use the Ask a Question button you can find in the toolbar. There you also have the possibility to upvote the suggested topics from the other participants. We will try to go through all the questions. Sometimes it might be that a question is super personal or not relevant for all of the participants. Then you can talk about these questions after the event. So now, Simon, the stage is yours. Maybe before we start with the topics, you can shortly introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about the mission of Muffin.
Sure. Hope everybody can hear me. Let me quickly share my screen before I start. And please let me quickly know once you see it. Great.
Yeah, now it works.
Should see it. Perfect. Yeah, so my name is Simon. One of my co-founders, Thomas, is also here. We are from Muffin. Muffin is an insurtech from Berlin. And we try to be the pill for all your insurance pains. We know that insurance is not the sexiest topic alive. We know that there are better things to do with your spare time than coping with insurance. So we want to make it as easy and convenient as somehow possible. So we work with tools you use anyways. For example, our whole consultation happens in WhatsApp. So from just asking us questions, getting proper consultation, getting overviews, filling out forms, and even signing contracts, you can do everything in WhatsApp. Our service is fully available in German and English, so especially relevant for those of you who are non-German speakers, because we know that there's hardly any good information available in Germany when it comes to insurance that is not in German. We also have an app. Once you're one of our clients, there you have all your insurance topics in. It's basically the single source for all your insurance matters. We do the communication to the insurance companies for you. We even do claims management for you so that you never have to deal with insurance topics yourself. That's kind of our mission. And we work a lot with young professionals and with especially freelancers like you from the tech industry. Because, I mean, you guys are tech savvy, you, especially freelancers, you need to take care of all insurance pension topics yourself. So we try to be there for you. But this is not a sales call for Muffin, but we try to get you some good information. So what are we going to talk about today? One of the most important topics for you guys, obviously, is health insurance. So we first gonna kick off with that topic, then talk a bit about get protected from the unexpected. I picked out 4 types of insurances there. We quickly gonna go through that make sense for freelancers and to have. They're basically in the order of relevance for you. And then we also talk a bit about private pension in the end. All right, let me get started with the topic of health insurance. As you guys know, health insurance is mandatory in Germany. If you are a German citizen or if you live in Germany, you definitely need it. Just a quick note on the side, the information you get right now is relevant for all people who are German citizens or you who are based in Germany, paying taxes in Germany and plan to live there for a couple of years. If you only tend to stay in Germany for a year or two and just need an insurance for your visa, that's a specific case. And I would kindly ask you to contact us, for example, in WhatsApp after this, and you can get all the relevant information there. But since this is probably not applicable to most of you guys, I'm going to focus on the regular cases. So yeah, in Germany, you have basically two types of insurances. You have public and private health insurance. Public health insurance is available to everybody. Like there's no pre-requirement to get it. When it comes to private health insurance, there are some pre-requirements. You can get it either if you have a really high base salary as an employee, or you are a student, or you are self-employed like you guys. So freelancers have always the free choice between private and public health insurance. Let me start with what kind of benefits do you get in each insurance. So public health insurance, since it's a social system, basically gives you all the basic benefits required by law. So obviously, if you are really sick, if you have an injury, you can always go to the doctors, it's paid for. But there are no real perks. Like some perks could be getting a massage, getting dental cleanings, getting quick appointments at a doctor, having free choice of doctor. That's all perks that you get in a private health insurance. Most people think that private health insurance is always more expensive than public health insurance. That is actually not true, because public health insurance depends on your income. So for high income earners, if they are self-employed or employed, this can go up to almost 1,000 euros per month for health insurance, because it's always a fixed percentage of your income. When it comes to private health insurance, the price depends on other factors. For example, how many benefits and perks do you want? So do you want a basic plan? Do you want an advanced plan? Do you want a premium plan? How old are you and what's your health status or health condition? Once you 450 euros a month. There are also cheaper options, like super basic options, and obviously there are premium options which can go up to more than 1,000 euros. But for most people, this would be kind of the range. Also, a large myth that is around there is that private health insurance gets more expensive over time, like really expensive. And that's also not true. I'm just gonna flip to the next one because that's actually the first myth we're talking about, which is that private health insurance becomes more expensive with age. That's not true. Health insurance obviously gets more expensive over time, but that's due to inflation and that's due to medical services becoming more expensive. And that's both the case for private health insurance and public health insurance. So over the past 10 years, public health insurance has actually increased in price significantly more than private health insurance. So there's no mechanism saying that, or it's actually not allowed by law, that private health insurance becomes more expensive when you are older and might need more medical treatments. It's actually the opposite, because once you turn 60, the price decreases due to some mechanisms within the insurance system. I'm not going to dig into deeper now, but once you're 60, it basically decreases roughly 10% in price and then even more over time. Also, a really common myth of private health insurance is that you pay more when you are sick and you have high bills. That's completely wrong. There's no such thing, and it's prohibited by law to do this. A health insurance can only increase prices for everybody, but not for single individuals. Another thing is the whole billing and paying medical bills system. So you know that if you have public health insurance right now, you have this little card, you go to the doctors, you hand it in, and things get magically paid for. That's not the case in private health insurance. There you basically get sent a bill, and then you have to pay this. But it's not that you always have to advance it. So how it works is basically your doctor sends you a bill, let's say 500 euros for a treatment, and then you hand in this bill to your insurance company via an app. You usually just take a photo of it, press 2 buttons, and then send it in. And then you get paid back by the insurance company, usually within 7 to 14 days. And the payment period for paying those bills is like 2 weeks to 4 weeks. So you usually already have the money in your bank account once you need to make the payment. Another myth is that switching back to public health insurance from private health insurance is not possible. To be honest, it is not the easiest thing to do. One thing that definitely has to be true is that you need to be below 55. So if you're older than 55, you can't switch back anymore. Before you can, for example, for you guys, there are 2 mechanisms which are applicable. For those of you who are non-German citizens, you can just switch your place of residence back to your home country for a couple of months and then come back to Germany. This would be a mechanism to get back into public health insurance. Another one would be that you get an employment, like you switch your employment status from self-employed to employed. Then you can, for example, also enter public health insurance again. But what we strongly believe is that the choice of getting private health insurance instead of public health insurance should come from you, and you should be persuaded by it, like from the benefits, from the price, that you want to make the switch and not do it for 2 to 3 years and then wanting to switch back to public health insurance. Yeah, that's a quick introduction to this. I know that there are a lot of questions regarding this. Just drop them in the question section and we can dig a bit deeper there afterwards, or you can just follow up in WhatsApp and get all the questions out. All right, let's talk a bit about how to get protected from the unexpected. Because, I mean, you guys always have financial risks, right? You don't have a super safe and steady job. You might make more money one month over the other. So you should get protected from high financial risks that might ruin you. One super crucial insurance that everybody should have, from our opinion, is personal liability insurance. This basically covers all the damage you cause to third parties. So it could be you lose the key of a friend, or maybe a business partner you work for, they need to replace all the locks. That can easily be a few €1,000. That's, for example, paid for. Or you break a phone of somebody else and it needs to get repaired or even replaced. And obviously the most expensive one is if you damage a person's health. That can even go to the millions if this person is unable to work afterwards, or needs surgery and stuff, and you are responsible for that. Then this insurance covers those claims as well. The insurance is roughly €4 a month, so that should actually be a no-brainer. Another insurance which we find very important, especially for freelancers, is job disability insurance. It's a quite German thing. It doesn't exist in many other countries. The good thing is that it covers you worldwide. So even if you move back to your home country, if you move abroad for a couple of years, you can keep this insurance. How does it work, basically? So in case you are unable to work, whether it's short-term, for example, with a burnout, and you're unable to work for a year or two, or you have a severe injury and can never work again, this insurance pays you a monthly lump sum. So, for example, €2,000 a month, so that you can keep your standard of living. That's basically what this insurance is for, to because you're not part of a social system, which like a social healthcare system, which would cover you for a couple of months. But even for employees, this makes sense because once this social system expires after a few months, they need it as well. So common cases at the moment is mostly mental health problems, so burnouts, depressions, or severe accidents, or things like cancer, obviously, where you need long treatments and you're unable to work. Those insurances are not that cheap. They are roughly 50 to 70 euros a month, mostly depending on how old are you and what's your current health situation, and obviously which kind of lump sum amount you want to get paid out. So obviously, if you decide on the lump sum being just 1,500 euros, then it's cheaper than if you decide for it to be 2,000 euros. Third insurance I quickly want to talk about is legal insurance. This basically covers all the costs for enforcing claims and legal consultation. So for lawyers, the cost of a court, and so on. So this could, for example, be in your private life. For those who live in cities like Berlin, that might be a very common thing, that your landlord wants to kick you out of the apartment, or you have issues with your neighbors, or you're subrenting something and get sued. Then basically you can get a lawyer and they take care of it for you without you having to pay for it. And this can go easily into the thousands. Same, obviously, for business purposes. You have a dispute with a client, they don't want to pay, or they are unsatisfied with your work, then you can get legal consultation there as well. Those insurances, for good ones, they are roughly 15 to 25 euros a month, depending on what you want to have covered. If you want to include, for example, traffic things, if you want to include job things, if you want to include housing, and so on. All right, last one in this section is home content insurance. This basically covers all damages to movable things within your apartment. So, for example, your washing machine has a leak and damages your floor and your furniture. That could be a common reason. Or your stove catches fire and stuff gets burned. But one of the most common things, again, mostly in cities, for example, is also your bike gets stolen. So if you still have the receipt of the bike and you can show them that you always locked it, then this insurance covers the price of your bike, for example, as well. And those kind of insurances are quite cheap as well. They're roughly 4 to 7 euros a month. So those are the four common ones for self-employed people, basically in the order that we would recommend to get them. Last topic before we jump to the questions is the topic of private pension. I mean, you guys are exempt from paying into the German pension scheme, which is actually something good, because the German pension scheme is not that great, especially compared to other countries. If you are an employee in Germany, you at the moment roughly get 45% of your last salary as a pension, which is not that much. It's a lot higher in other countries. And this number is decreasing by the year, because in Germany it works as a social system where the current working generation basically pays the pension of those who already receive pension. And I mean, everybody knows there are fewer and fewer children and more elderly people. So this system is not working greatly. So you have the benefit that you can choose not to pay into the system, but actually take care of your pension yourself. And all of this is called private pension. There's some things that you should be aware of. There are many private pension products on the market, and most of them sound great. They tell you, yeah, you're getting tax benefits and you get a fixed amount at time X. but many of them are not great due to several reasons. That's why I quickly want to go through 4 things that, from our perspective, a really good private pension plan should always have. One of the most important one, especially for freelancers, is the topic of flexibility. So there are pension schemes, private pension schemes, where you can only access your money once you turn 62. So you can only use it for actually your pension, but not before. And that's not something that is great, because, I mean, you might need it earlier, whatever, your car breaks down, you need a new one to get to your clients, or you decide, hey, I want to take a sabbatical for a year and I've some money saved up there. I want to access it now. So this flexibility should always be there, and you shouldn't touch products which do not offer this kind of flexibility. Next one is the topic of tax benefits. Obviously, there are regular ETF savings plans, like from Trade Republic and so on, and that's something nice to do on the side. But those schemes or savings plans don't offer you tax benefits. You only get tax benefits if you have like an insurance wrapper wrapped around your savings plan. This tax benefit usually means that you only pay taxes on 50% of your gains, instead of on 100 for a regular savings plan. And obviously that makes a huge difference, especially in the long term. Third one is costs. With many pension schemes, the only person benefiting from this scheme is the broker or the advisor who basically sells you this product, because they get huge commissions on it. In many cases several thousand euros. And they tell you, well, the product is free of costs. We are not charging you anything. You get free consultation for this product, which is just not true, because there are many hidden costs within those contracts. And you basically pay off these commissions within the first couple of years. And everybody who knows a bit about the concept of compound interest knows that it's especially important to get a lot of money into those contracts in the first years, in order for the money to basically work in your favor and appreciate in value over time. So be aware of those products and rather get a second opinion, or feel free to reach out to us, so that we can check whether your private pension plans you already have or you might want to take out are good and make sense. The fourth one is the whole topic of returns. So many products on the market invest in super stable things like bonds or fixed income securities. Those products have returns of, in many cases, less than 2% a year. And I mean, you guys all know how high inflation is at the moment. And even in regular years, basically the gains from those products is eaten up by inflation already. So they don't make a lot of sense, at least not in the first years. Because what you want is products like ETFs or mutual funds who at least have a return of 7 to 8% a year. I mean, obviously, those kind of products fluctuate a lot more and are a lot more unstable. But since you're saving up for in whatever 10, 20, 30, 40 years, this shouldn't be a huge problem. What you obviously should do is, once you become older and you want to have some stability there, to shift money away from shares, from ETFs, into those safe havens, but not in the beginnings. All right. That was a quick introduction into the topic. We will answer to questions now. Here you see our lovely team at the moment. if you have specific questions, if you want to get a consultation, if you want to get in touch, we are always there for you. You can just scan the code here. You get into a really quick funnel where you basically just tell us how we can support you. You give us your number and your name, and then you can text with us on WhatsApp. And we're gonna help you with all the topics that you might have. All right. Thanks a lot. And we're gonna switch to questions now.
Yeah, so we already have like 8 questions from the community. If you have like more questions by now, feel totally free to ask your question. The most upvoted question by now is why is it worth it to be like actually insured with a normal standardized Rentenversicherung when it makes sense to be there as a freelancer? Because from the information we got from you, mostly it makes no sense to pay in that pension. Is that correct?
So I guess I kick in. Yeah, so in general, you have to see the German system like this Pflichtversicherung in Germany as a system which is owned by the state and organized by the state. And I think everyone from you knows, if you come to Germany, how much bureaucracy is coming there. And the same is also here. It's not often very good, or it's not worth to get it, especially because it's covering all the people in Germany. So not only freelancers or the people who are earning more, it's covering everything. And so you're coming into you're in a collective where everyone gets the same treatment, kind of. And so the only possible solution, the only way is here, if you can't get a proper insurance, for example, if you cannot work anymore, a job disability insurance, or when you have private health insurance, there is the sickness days included, so that the private health insurance is also paying you per sickness day. If people cannot go there and cannot get any insurance there, you can think about joining it, but in general, it's not that lucrative and efficient.
Maybe to just quickly add on this, for everybody understanding, is that public health insurances and also the public pension scheme can never refuse you. Since it's a social system, you can always enter it. On the other side, you have regular insurances, like private, they work like every private company, so they can choose whether they accept you or not. So every private health insurance, every job disability insurance, they will basically decide whether they accept you or not based on your health condition, based on your job, based on your age. So only in the case that they refuse to accept you, the public insurances make sense for you as freelancers.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see.
So, for example, if you currently are in a psychotherapy, the likelihood of getting into private health insurance is relatively low, and you might have to wait for a couple of years. So then it might make sense to get in other cases not.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And even because one freelancer was asking why not using the public pension scheme for 5 years, which guarantees the minimum of pension. I think that depends probably on your annual salary, but if you have a really great salary, I think after 5 years, you already know you kind of reach that maximum. And do you think that could be something when I want to, for example, diversify my portfolio for my pension?
So there are a lot of strings attached, so it's not that easy. So you can't pay just for 5 years in and expect for your whole life a minimum pension. Always when you go into pension, they are looking into your insurance times. And if they see you were insured 20 years ago for 5 years, you will barely get something, or even if you get something. And there are a lot of laws behind that, and always, if it doesn't make sense, if you just think about it rationally, there is a law which prohibits it or will not give you any minimum pension, what you're mentioning. So then you have to pay for your whole life or or anything, but you will not get it also if you pay.
If you only paid for 5 years into it, even if you get something, that amount will be probably less than 50 euros a month. So not something that you can live off and that you should count on. And within those 5 years, you've paid thousands of euros into the system. So, I mean, the math behind this is quite easy, that if you get your pension for 30, 40 years and you get 50 euros a month, but you paid tens of thousands of euros into the system, it's not a great deal. So just doing it for a couple of years to diversify your pension, definitely not a good option.
Okay, I see.
And it's also the other question, is there something like an American for 100K, some construct where you can put money on and you can decrease your taxes there? That's also connected with this. So every time you can decrease your taxes with something where you're saving money in, there are always strings attached. There is Riester-Rente, Rürup-Rente, and like the commercial pension schemes, which sounds pretty good for someone who's not understanding the system. But at the end, you are only getting your money when you're 62 or older. And it's always like there is something behind it, and this is connected to it. And this is the same here. So you pay thousands of euros into it, but you will never see them within the next 40 years. And only if you are getting in a situation where you get it, and then it's only a part of it. So we always recommend to try to keep your money as flexible as possible. So not putting it into contracts where you cannot see the money the next 40 years, but always have it in your management kind of, so that you can always cash out if something happens, because nobody knows how life goes, and it can be that next year someone get diagnosed with something and only has 2 years to live, and then no one will give you your money back what you paid into like intransparent contracts.
Absolutely. Or maybe it's not even that worse. Maybe some people want to buy a house or something because the market develops in a different way, and then it's good that you can at least get the money from ETFs kind of short notice when you wait a bit, right?
Exactly. That's always an option that, for example, you use houses, flats, and so on to basically pay for your pension, but then obviously you have to buy them, so you want to make use of the money before.
Absolutely. So one question, 1 second, I need a second to translate because we have like many German fixed terms in that questions. One freelancer is asking the main advantage from the obligatory insurance is the Erwerbsminderungsrente. I think that's a pension where you get some money from the government in case you're not able to work anymore, and you would still get that if you might be not able to pay that obligatory insurance, especially when you don't have a Berufsunfähigkeitsversicherung. Berufsunfähigkeitsversicherung is an additional insurance you can do with the broker in case you're not able to work anymore. And now
that's a job disability insurance we just talked about.
Disability insurance, exactly, that's the right term. And the question is if it makes sense, just to that reason, being able to get the Erwerbsminderungsrente to pay in the obligatory insurance.
It's connected with the first question I've answered, I guess. So if you don't have any chance to get a private protection here, so job disability insurance or the sickness days insurance in your private health, then you should definitely look out for anything which covers you when you get sick. And if it's the only chance to get protection there, then of course we also recommend going there, because they can't refuse you, like Simon said. But mostly there are also other insurances that can cover at least the same amount as the public one. Also, if you have chronic diseases or anything else, it's always, then there are these edge cases where you have to get a consultation because it's very complex. And mostly you can find a private product which is covering that, and which is cheaper than the public one, by the way.
Okay, I get it. One other question, I think, Simon, you talked already a bit about it, saying it's actually not a real age limit. One question is if there's like a specific age limit, whether I should have decided if I want to be in the public health insurance or to kind of like swap into the private one. I also personally always thought there's that one point when you're like 55 where you should not swap anymore because it gets super expensive, but you already said that's not the case, right?
Yeah, I think the question here is the other way around than I explained, because I explained how you get back from private health to public health. This now is asking the other way around. There's no specific age, but one thing that is important to mention is that a really high portion which defines the price of your private health insurance is your age. So the sooner you get in, the cheaper the price of the insurance will be also in the long term. So I guess once you're in your late 40s, the price might already be so high that it doesn't make sense compared to public health insurance. But especially for people who are in their 20s, 30s, or early 40s, usually the price for private health insurance is still cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, it really also depends on your living situation. So how many wealth you have, where you live, and also what your plans for the pension or the coming years are. Because only if you can afford it, it makes sense to switch. So it really depends on the living situation here as well.
Okay, get it. The next question is, I think you already answered it in the chat, Thomas. If you switch from freelance to being employed again, is it also easy to get back to the public health insurance if your salary is too high?
So if your salary is too high, you don't drop out of it. So there must be a situation where you, for a short time, like 1 month is enough here, dropping out of this of the system of private health. And this is the case if you earn for at least 1 month under the 66,000 at the moment, or if you register yourself as unemployed, or any other situation. Also, if you move out of Germany for a month or just register there, you're also dropping out. So there are many ways, but mostly, like I've experienced it only one time that people really want to change, because when you switch to employment, your employer will pay 50% of the contribution. And most of the people who are coming back to being employed are even upgrading their insurance because the employer pays half of it. So it is possible under some circumstances, but it's not that often that people want to change.
Once you basically tasted private health insurance, people don't want to get back to public. I had private health insurance most of my life because my dad is a teacher, so he's a civil servant, and civil servants in Germany have private health insurance and also their children. And then in my first job, when I was still employed, I earned too little to stay in the private health, and then I was in public for 3 years. And it sucked because, I mean, if you're used to just calling a doctor and getting an appointment 2 days later, if you're used to treatments like massages, to single bedrooms in hospitals and so on, and then you're suddenly part of the public health care system, it's kind of weird. And I'm really happy that I'm back now that I'm self-employed again.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. Especially I had some back problems and I'm since ever in the public health insurance. And then after they can give you like, I think 6 hours of massages or something, or a consultation with a physiotherapist. And after that, basically you need to wait like 2 years or something till you get the next one, except they're making the diagnosis worse than it is. But then if you want to get like a job disability insurance, it's really bad when there are some words like spine problems there. So yeah, I think it makes totally sense also to swap like quite early. The next question is regarding like some tax issues. Which insurance can you expense as a freelancer? Is it basically all of them or just like some specific ones?
It's always the individual case, unfortunately. So the Finanzamt at the end of the year decides which you can deduct from your taxes and what not. For example, someone who's driving a lot the car because they are the courier or something can expense totally different insurances as someone who's only working in front of the computer. So it really depends here. But everything what makes sense and is connected to your job, you can normally deduct from your taxes. So, for example, health insurance always, also liability, and also risk life or job disability, because it's connected to your risk of being self-employed. So this is normally deductible.
Okay.
Yeah, you just have to find a
Reductible,
reason.
sorry. Yeah,
You just have
reductible,
to
not
make-
deductible.
You just have to make a case regarding it, and usually for self-employed people, the Finanzamt is quite lax there and usually lets it go through.
Yeah. The next question, I think we also talked about it already. So the private health insurance always seems to be the better options. Are there still some reason to join the public health insurance?
Like on the one hand side, if you cannot join the private health, then you have to go to public. So this case is always there. Also, many people say from ethical reasons that they don't want to go to private, because when you're in the public, you're paying more, but you're covering also everyone's health costs. And especially, for example, if your parents or grandparents had a good treatment in public, you want to, you want to be there. Also, for example, for people who have family, it's a little bit easier because you can include your partner or your kids into your insurance, and you don't have to pay for them separately or include them into private health. So it makes a lot easier here. And another one is, of course, when you're not earning that much, the contribution is based on your income. And if your income is less, you don't have to pay the full amount of, and you don't have to pay the full amount for the private health. And also, if you're dropping your income for a few months or at least a year, you can switch again to the 200 euro option, I guess. There is this stability there, but in general, like Simon said, if you tasted private health once, you tried everything to get one.
Get it. In general, are there any concerns with respect to insurance that I should keep in mind if I switch between freelancing and being employed? Say, if I'm a freelancer and decide to become employed and switch back to freelancing after a year. I think especially now during COVID and stuff, I know many freelancers who kind of did it exactly that. They were like fully employed again for a year or something and then switch back to freelancing. Might be also interesting because some freelancers also decide sometimes to go for like a temporary employment. In Germany, it's called ANÜ, Arbeitnehmerüberlassung, when it's like an exciting project, maybe for a year, and then they go back to freelancing. So maybe you can tell us a bit about the effects.
Yeah, I can start a bit on it. First of all, for you personally, it doesn't make a difference. So the insurance can't kick you out just because you switch jobs or you switch between being employed and being self-employed, unless the whole system of health insurance. For all other insurances, it doesn't make a difference. If you tend to switch between being employed and self-employed, you should keep in mind to have some flexibility in your contracts so that you can upgrade or downgrade your insurance coverage, and thus have lower prices when, for example, when you're employed and making less money, or the other way around. And to also have the option to get back into premium options at any time again, because these kind of flexibilities are not always included, and insurances charge a bit extra for them, but not that much. So in this case, it would totally be worth getting those flexibility options.
And this is also maybe the case for people who don't want to switch now into private health, but in the future, but they are currently healthy enough to join them. So they can kind of reserve their seat for private health by just paying 5 to 10 euros per month. And so, for example, especially for young freelancers or people who don't, who cannot afford it yet because they are starting their freelance job or any other case, so they can just reserve their seat for a few euros per month.
Yeah, the system is called Anwartschaft in German, and it basically freezes your current health condition. So you're a perfectly healthy 24-year-old, and you would easily get into all those insurances, especially private health or job disability, and you kind of want to freeze that, but not get into the insurance at that moment, because whatever, you want to travel around the world for 2 years. But then when you're 26, you know you want to get it, then it makes sense to do this, because when you're 26, you might have had a disease or a surgery, or you're just a bit older. Thus, it's harder to get in and the price might be higher. That's also always an option.
Because I feel like, especially, I just had like that big milestone of caring about the job and disability insurance, and that's like informations I feel like they're not actively advertised by the insurance brokers most in the case, or are they? Because I never heard that basically you can have that Anwartschaft and just wait and kind of like freeze your spot.
Yeah, because the brokers want to make the sale straight away, obviously, and get their commission.
But if you have, I think if you have that bullet point and you just throw it on them, then probably they're like obliged to give you that information.
Obviously, yeah. Obviously.
Yeah, so and of course,
sorry.
And one connected point to this is when you get this flexibility option, this Anwartschaft Optionsversicherung, you have to go through the fully contract. So you're having like the normal contract, which is a long process kind of, because you have to get a quote, apply for it. And also for many brokers, it's like a lot of time consuming just for the reservation. So that's also the reason why it's always also not that publicly announced, I would say. But there is, like, you can get it from normally from everywhere.
I get it. So Dean was pointing out the reform of the public pension system that's planned or up to come, and is asking if it might make sense to collect those pension points. Get super political. I don't know if you want to answer that, guys. I don't know, in general, we don't know what comes in the next 30 years and how often it will be reformed and reformed again, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're probably talking about the Aktienrente mostly. It's not official yet whether it's going to come or not. Basically, for those who don't know, the idea behind the system is to partially invest the money which is there in the pension system to be invested into the stock market, just like in most other countries where you actually get a pension, and they started doing this dozens of years ago. And now, for example, the biggest investor in the world is the Norwegian pension fund. They have billions over billions in there. That's why they can still pay out nice pensions. And well, Germany realized that now as well. So they are starting to do this. We just don't know how it's going to work out. We don't know when it's going to come. So there's not really something we can add to this. If it's really coming, then it might be an option to put a bit of money in it at one point, maybe not. The good thing is about private pension plans is that you can always discontinue them. You can always lower the amount you're putting in there. So you always have the flexibility. So even if this state pension changes and becomes better, you can just decrease your private pension by whatever, 200 euros a month, and put some money in there as well. You can always alter the amount you're paying in. You can completely stop it and just let it sit in the contract for a couple of years. For example, if you're traveling, if you're getting a sabbatical. So those private pension plans, at least the good ones, are flexible enough for you not to worry about this Aktienrente.
And maybe a comment here. The last 5 reforms on the pension scheme were like an absolute catastrophe, and it was always not worth, and it was crazy because we are having a lot of lobbyism in Germany, and the biggest lobby in Germany is the insurance lobby. And all the reforms back then, the one who profited from the reform were the insurance brokers and insurance contract sellers, because they get huge commission when they sell those stuffs. So it would, like, of course, it was historically, and you should rely on that. But we have in Germany a system where the insurance lobby is saying a lot, and I guess the same here. So just from a realistic point.
Absolutely. So which pension scheme in the end makes sense for a freelancer? You told us something flexible. How is a good scheme called? Give us a Stichwort to Google it, please. I mean, probably it's hard to give like a general answer to that, because also it depends a lot on the plans of someone personally, if they want to buy a house, a flat, or how they want to organize themselves. But do you have some components that definitely should be included in a good pension scheme?
Yeah. So obviously the best product is our own. We basically built a product over the past months with an insurance company in Germany. It's one of the very few insurance companies which don't pay commission. So it's all those points which we mentioned earlier. You invest into different ETFs. You can freely choose in what you want to invest in. If it's whatever tech focus, if it's environmentally friendly focus, whatever it is, it's completely flexible. You can alter the amounts you pay in, and you don't pay us any commission. So the money goes straight into your contract. Yeah, those are all the points. If you want to Google it and find other options, you can Google for ETF based Altersvorsorge. Thomas can comment on there what you can Google for. What you should always look for is commission-free products, because 95% of the ETF-based pension plans on the market have commission components which are paid out to the broker, and that significantly reduces the amount you get in the end due to compound interest.
And there also is coming one question from Jakob, actually a question I had in my mind as well. Why not buying the ETF on my own? How does it compare to the ETF-based private pension? What's the difference?
Yeah, the difference is how it's taxed. So on a regular ETF savings plan, you pay 100% taxes on your gains. So whatever you invested 20K, at one point it's worth 40K. So you pay taxes on the 20,000 you had as a profit. If you get this private pension insurance wrapper around it, you only pay taxes on 50% of your gains. And that can easily go up to several thousands or even 10,000s of euros that you save.
And also maybe on top of that, if you switch ETFs or sell them or want to switch them to more safe options here, it's not taxed. So for example, if you save 10,000 euros and you want to sell them or switch them into another ETF, if you have it on Trade Republic or in any other brokerage thing, then you have to pay taxes and the full amount, so 26% or something. And everything within this insurance wrapper is totally tax-free, and it's like totally your money. You can always pay it out, and you have always access to it. But you should pay it out after 62, of course.
Okay.
But in case you need to use some of the money earlier for something, you can always access it. That's the important thing, because you never know what happens in life, right?
Absolutely. So now we were talking basically about like an ETF-based pension scheme. Are there in general like other pension products that offer exactly this tax benefits?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
The next question is, which pension products offer me the tax benefits you mentioned? We were just talking about like an ETF-based pension scheme, for example, right? Like a possibility to tackle your pension. So my question is, are there also other pension products that offer that tax benefits we were talking about?
So the ones we talked about are always meant like the ones back which are coming. So when you're 62 and you are in pension, you get the get the benefits. There are a lot of products which offering tax benefits when you pay in, that you can reduce your taxes, or you get bonuses, or something is guaranteed. And mostly these contracts are the worst, because there are strings attached. There are parts included in the terms and conditions of the insurance companies, and you pay a lot of commissions. And after 10 years, you're looking into the report and think, oh my gosh, where's all my money? And like the only ones are these ETF-Rentenversicherung and general Rentenversicherung, but an ETF-based one is the only one which makes sense, because it's not that costly than the other options.
There are also the partially public ones that Thomas mentioned earlier, like Riester-Rente, and so on. They sound great because those are exactly the kind of contracts which are advertised with tax benefits, and you maybe get those tax benefits in the moment, and it looks and sounds great, but then you are taxed on them in the payout time. So once you turn 62 and you actually get money out, then this money is taxed. So the taxable amount is just postponed. So it sounds great for the moment, but then in the aftermath, you usually see the downsides of it.
Absolutely. We have two more questions regarding health and public insurance. One person said that he heard public. One second. It might be not specific for freelancers, but I heard public insurance can be cheaper when you have a child because they can be insured for free. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the system of family insurance. That's a system of family insurance, meaning that your children and your husband or wife gets insured in the insurance for free as well. And if you have a family, if you have a lot of kids, that might be the case that it makes sense for you, because in private health insurance, you have to pay for any additional person. It's not by far not the same amount that you pay. For a child, it's roughly 80 euros a month. But still, in case you have a large family, there's a lot more to take into consideration, and public health insurance might make sense. At least financially, not from the service, because the service is always better than the private one. But from a financial perspective, there might be no advantage anymore. But obviously, like if you make enough money, I guess most people also want the best treatment for their children. And then it might still make sense to pay a few extra euros for the better service.
Okay. In general, can I be insured with a private health insurance when I'm self-employed and also employed at a company with a salary lower than the threshold? I think it's about when you're like nebenberuflich selbstständig, if I got the question right.
Yeah, so if you're not full-time self-employed, it's not possible. Or it really depends. That's an edge case, a special case. It can be possible under some circumstances, but mostly if you're versicherungspflichtig, so you have to pay social taxes. And if you pay social taxes and not earning more than 66,000, you normally can't go to private. But if your self-employment part-time is giving you that much income, it can be possible. So it's a very edge case here, very individually looked at it.
So if your main income is coming from an employment and the amount you get is below 66K, then no, you can't get private health insurance, to make it really brief.
Even when your other income, yearly income might be much higher. I'm thinking about our IT freelancers. I know many are employed like 30 hours a week, and then they're still working 20 hours on other projects and making actually more money in the project than with their job. But then you still can't switch, right?
Like it really depends on this Versicherungspflicht, and you can apply for getting out of it under circumstances, but normally not. So because you're versicherungspflichtig in your job where you're working at. It also depends on what citizenships you have, and there are constructs, but this is like a very complex and very edge case.
Okay. But Thomas knows all about it, so if this is the case for you, just chat with him and he's gonna find a solution how to get you in there.
Amazing. Then we have one last tax questions. Are the contributions for the private pension also target tax deductible, or are you normally paying taxes on them?
So the ones you pay into an intransparent system, yes. If you want to have access to your money and enjoy the flexibility, normally not. And that hurts, we know. We have a lot of self-employed people or freelancers who are asking this, and it hurts not to reduce the income here. But unfortunately, in good contracts, it's never the case that you can reduce the tax amount with your contributions, only when you pay it out after 62.
Perfect. I think that was the last question. Thank you guys so much for your time. Maybe before we leave, you can also post again your contact details in the chat. In the beginning, you shared the QR code, but maybe it will be super helpful for the participant to reach out directly. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great evening, and hope to see you soon.
Yes.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.